The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome. We'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. You are here for the second part of the fire, life, and safety plans. This is the second part of the Hospital Inspector Certification Exam Preparation Webinar Series. We've also provided for your use handouts, which are in PDF forms of today's presentation, the Fire Life Safety Plans and Questions, IOR Certification Fire Life Safety Extra Practice Plan and Questions, IOR Practice Plans Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing, Practice Plans Architectural, and Practice Plans Seismic Restraint. So again, we'd like to point towards the go-to toolbox, and in there you'll see the handout grayed out tab. If you want to go ahead and click the down arrow, you'll have access to all of those 5 PDF documents for your use. Again, please be sure to download those as they are pretty big in as far as size. So if we email them to you, we're going to have to send one by one, and that'll take some time. So if you're available and you could do it now, please download them so we can go ahead and continue with the presentation. So you are here for about a 30-minute presentation. We'll be presenting this webinar in an open mic format. Most of you I recognize the name, so most of you have been here before. But for those of you who are new, know that you will be able to raise your hand and ask a question to the presenter and to the technical staff as well if you have a question about the presentation or you'd like to share a piece of information or something that you have ran by in the past that you think may be helpful for the presentation or those that are attending today's presentation. So if you have a question, be sure to click the little hand icon next to your name, and we'll be able to see that on our end. We'll be able to unmute you, then you can unmute yourself, and we can have that open discussion. Or if you don't want to raise your hand and have an open discussion, you can type your question into the question bar again in the go-to toolbox. We'll read the question and be able to provide an answer in both written format or verbal format. So if you don't want to ask a question, or if you have a question after the presentation is over, feel free to email us at oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. Again, that's oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. If you experience technical difficulties, we'll go ahead and ask you to log off and then log back in using the same information that the go-to panel sent you. And if we experience the same thing, either audio or video issues, we'll go ahead and log off and log back in to reconnect. So for today, presenters, we have Monica Colosi. She's a compliance officer with the Inspection Services Unit. And we also have Nancy Timmons. She's Chief Fire and Life Safety Officer within the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. She'll be here to answer any questions, any technical questions that you have about the presentation. And in the background, we'll have the Inspection Services Unit team answering all of the other questions as well. So Monica, if you're there, the presentation's all yours.
Thank you, Cesar, and good afternoon to everybody. It's sad to say that this is the last part for the plan reading webinar, but we really truly hope that all these webinars have been helpful to you. Like Cesar said, on the handouts there are several PDF, including additional practice for the fire life safety plan reading questions. The homework, so today we're going through the 2 homework. Some of you sent the response, and some of you on the response unfortunately didn't answer correct. So I think this is a very good practice to go through and see. So once that you know what is the right answer, going through the process and understanding why maybe you decided to give the wrong answer. And again, if you want to clarify, just raise your hand, and we'll be more than happy to go through the process with you. So let's go through the two homework. Homework one, according to the plan, how many exits have been provided from the ground floor part A, 1802 lobby? And the second homework is, according to the plan, what is the clear width on the second floor stair landing in the direction of the door swing? And those were the answers. So for the first homework, the answer was A. For the second homework, the answer was C. So let's go through one homework per time and go through the process. So how to find the information about the exit for the 1802 lobby? Some of you provided the answer as 2 doors, but pay attention on the area. So 1802, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but look the red arrow. This is the door that for exit is opening to the outside. So this other door cannot be considered as an exit, because the more you get in, the more you go inside the building in order to go through eventually this other door. So maybe you were in a hurry to look that the exit where this big arrow B3 and this other one next to the A, but in the reality is only one. So the answer is 1. So at this point, if you have any question, if you want to raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Monica, for that. Want to go ahead and encourage everyone to raise your hand, or at least participate in the discussion if that seems somewhat confusing or you need further explanation. Want to go ahead and look through the list of names to see who has raised their hand, and if no one raises their hand or has a question, we'd be happy to continue on with the presentation. So I'm going to look through the list of names one more time, and I don't see anyone raising their hand. So, I see a couple now. So I'm going to go ahead and call on Brian Andrade. Brian, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'll unmute you so you can ask a question. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was just going to note, I looked at the door swings as well, and I answered 1, but it was more or less based on the quantity of exit signs in that room and where the exit signs were pointing, which, led you through that, set of double doors. So I guess that's the way that I would look at it too. I mean, I get it. If it was a dual egress door, that would have also led me to believe that you could go out that way. But that was just another way that I looked at it. That's all.
Great. Thank you for sharing, Brian. Brian Hulk, I want to go ahead and call on you. If you can unmute your mic, I'll go ahead and unmute you on our end. Brian?
Hi. So, yeah, I answered 2, and I understand that the right answer is 1, but I just kind of thought that the exit out of the back of the room and through that arrow B3 would be considered a means of egress, and that it would be an exit, but I guess not.
It is an exit, but not for this room, because you need to go through this door, double door, pass a corridor, and then go in through. So for that reason, that B3.
Oh, okay. The central area is the corridor?
Yes. Mm-hmm. You have to go straight outside and not passing any other areas.
I thought that was just a hallway. I guess I should have looked closer.
Yeah.
All right, that makes a lot more sense then.
Great, thank you.
Until you can even consider, going totally crazy, you could even consider, was it this one, A3? Because, okay, you can go here, but it's not. It's just one. Okay?
Great. Thanks, Brian, for that comment. James, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you can unmute yourself. James? James, and I don't see that the software is recognizing a microphone on your end. So if you'd like to go ahead and type the question into the question box, we can go ahead and read the question out and maybe provide an answer that way. James Munns, I do see your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you can unmute yourself, James.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you, James. Go ahead.
No, I heard you say James earlier. I didn't know if you were talking about me or not. I didn't have my hand up, so I was just making sure it wasn't raised.
There's a couple of Jameses on here, so I apologize. Do you have a comment or anything you want to add to what's been said so far?
No, it's been self-explanatory. Everything's going good.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute you again, so thank you for that. And Alexander, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking my question, Caesar. I'm just wondering, for the real exam, how many questions, are there a lot of questions that are nuanced from a semantic standpoint? Because you guys are completely right that there's only one exit to the exterior, but that verbiage isn't included in the question. So I know that you guys aren't trying to trick us, but when we're talking about, like, 1AO2 exit, are we talking about an exit to the exterior, or are we talking about an exit from that particular lobby? So my question is I understand that answer is correct, but for the real exam, are we going to have a lot of nuanced questions like this where we don't actually have all the verbiage that says exit, how many exits to the exterior?
Caesar, do you want me to take that part of it?
Yes, if you could, Nancy, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. I'll just say one piece, and Caesar and Monica may want to add more. But speaking of terminology, so exit. Remember, there are three components of a means of egress. So I would suggest, we say we're not trying to trick you, of course, but when you see a word that you think it's a defined term in the code, take a look at that part of it too. So an exit is a specific thing, right? Means of egress are three components: the exit access, and exit discharge. So the way this is worded is, it would, if you're reading it verbatim, it does lead that way. And as I say that with caution as well, we don't want to get into the weeds, but definitely when you see a word that you recognize as being part of the definitions in chapter 2, that might trigger a flag of some sort for you as well. So if this one, even if it said means of egress, it wouldn't really change the answer for means of egress, but means of egress, then it would be, might be a little bit different, but it's specifically calling out an exit, which would be to the exterior in this case.
So like, to be technically accurate, that one exit is going into an exit discharge, right? Because the three components, exit access, exit discharge, this would be considered an exit discharge, where that red line with the point on the end is leading to. That's going to the total exterior. So I guess my point is you could construe this as, hey, there are multiple exits that lead to an exit access, and there is one exit that leads to an exit discharge, which is the one that we have here. But none of us have that information in the question. And I just want to make sure that, is this going to be something that we're going to kind of have to look for, when we're taking the actual exam?
So take a look. For some reason, I can't get out of this larger screen. There we go. I'll take a look for you. So if you're looking at actual, sorry, give me a second here. I need to pull this up. If you're looking at the definitions, and this is one of them, I have the academy memorized, but even I tell them all the time, even though you memorize it, even though you think you've got something down, still look it up. So I'm practicing what I preach. So if I go to chapter 2 and head to exit, specific, just plain old exit, that portion of a means of egress system between the exit access and the exit discharge or public way. Exit components include exterior exit doors at the level of exit discharge, interior exit stairways and ramps, exit passageways, exterior exit stairways and ramps, and horizontal exits. So that specific door is an exit. Once we cross through that door, then you're in the exit discharge. As far as exit access, when you're inside that lobby, you're technically in a exit access portion, or if you're in a room, or if you're in a corridor. So if you're walking through a corridor and you get to the door, to the stair, once you get to that stair door, you've entered an exit, and then, or an exit component. So it just watch the terminology that way too, because the door technically is the exit, and then once the individual passes through that threshold, they're in the portion that begins the exit discharge.
Yeah. So this would be like if this was one of the ones that I got wrong on this, and it was on the exam, I would definitely challenge that just based on the definition. I'm looking at the same definition right now. So I guess to Caesar and the rest of the individuals, is this the type of thing or where we're going to have a lot of questions like this? Is what I'm saying. Are we going to have a lot of questions like this?
So again, Alex, just to kind of reiterate what you mentioned earlier in your opening statement, that these questions are not meant to trick anyone. And the best piece of advice that we can give you is to read the question and answer it to the best of your ability. If that challenge is something that you think is going to help you in your effort to pass the exam, then please by all means. But the questions. Your question is, will all of them be like this? And the answer is not intentionally no.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Jason, I see that you have your hand up. Jason Harrison, I'm going to go ahead and call on you. If you can unmute and unmute yourself, please, Jason.
Yes. So when I'm looking at this area, I know there's some confusion on that, but essentially exits, you're going to have to go in the path of travel, and the doors will exit in your path of travel as well. And so when you go to an exit door, typically those will open in the direction that you're traveling. And looking closer at the plan, you'll see that in the event of an emergency, and if it was an egress, right, people in compartment B would not be going through the lobby door. They'd be going out what appears to be south side, right? So when you're looking at it, you're thinking you're not going to go through the smoke barrier, because if you're trying to get out of the building and there's a fire in compartment B, you're trying to get out of compartment A, and there's only one door that really feeds you out of an exit door that opens out, which typically would have panic hardware, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's the way I look at it, really.
Perfect. No, that's helpful. That's very helpful, and we want to thank everyone who has raised their hand and asked a question, because these types of questions really do help others maybe see it clearly or answer any doubt that they might have. So thank you for sharing that, Jason. I want to go ahead and mute you again, and Monica, I'd like to ask you to continue with the presentation, please.
Okay, so let's go to the second homework. According to the plan, what is the clear width on the second floor stair landing in the direction of the door swing? And here there is the enlarged stair plan, second floor. Door swing is here, the landing is here, and 5'9" is the dimension. Any question for that?
All right. Again, I'm going to look through the list of names. And feel free to type the question into the go-to question box. We can answer those types of questions privately as well, if you don't want to raise your hand and have an open discussion. So I do see more hands raised. I'm going to call on George. George, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. You have your hand raised. George?
How are you doing? I see here you guys have a 5'9" for that door swing. I see there could be multiple answers for this. One being possibly none of the above at 8'4" clear, which is the total width of that landing. And also where it shows the door swing on that stringer, where the door swing is, also could be 44 inches minimum, which is what that door swing is on the landing.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I don't understand your...
So my question is, how is it that 5'9" is the accurate answer. It just seems confusing as far as the question. With
Okay,
it being
so which one for you is the door swing, the direction of the door swing? Which one is where ends the opening of the door?
The opening of the door there, if you see that landing where that opening of the door is, it shows the total landing is 8'4" clear.
Yes.
If you're going up that stringer, which shows the door swing, which is showing the door swing of that side of that stringer, it shows on the bottom 44-inch minimum clear, which shows that door swing at 44-inch minimum clear.
I see what you say, but the direction of the door swing is this direction, not this direction. This direction. And this is why it's 5'9". If the door was here, for example, and opening this way, the direction was here, therefore, eventually the answer was going to be this, but it's not the case. The direction is over here.
Okay, thank you.
Very welcome.
Great, thank you. Bradley, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Bradley.
Yeah, this one tricked me too, because I looked at it in two different components. One was the word clear, right? So 5'9" clear isn't defined on there, while there are other dimensions on this plan that do say clear. So what I did is I went to the stair landing section, which I think was detail 3, and that's where it calls out 44 clear. Because that top landing, you know, when you look at that stair plan in the lower right corner, it doesn't say landing, but there is a leader on there that says landing. So it drew me to.
Correct.
What's that?
So you said that you are looking here.
Yes, because I was reading the words. I was trying to pick apart the keywords, right? Landing and clear. So then they drew me to the landing section, and then I was looking for clear dimensions.
I see your point, but the keyword are the direction of the door swing. And there are no doors here at all.
I can add to that if you want. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Who was asking the question? Sorry.
Bradley is the one asking the question, Nancy.
Yeah. Bradley, I'm wondering if you're also thinking about.
Yeah, so if you look, there is a dimension in that lower right corner that's also in the same direction of the swing. It's on the x-axis, I would
call it. Right. So I think I don't want to put words in your mouth or your mind, but there are several requirements for dimensions for stair landings, right? So maybe you're thinking of the multiple components of the requirements. There's this one, that what does it have to be in the direction of travel, and with the door swing that's leading you to that one, and then what does the landing have to be as a whole, and what does it have to be at each level? So there are multiple requirements in the code for the landing, but the way the question is worded is it's just taking you specifically to the component that is helping you to verify that the landing dimension from the door swing side is the one that you want to be looking at. And then, for a whole picture, if you were looking at a plan as a whole, you definitely want to be looking at these other landings and the different dimensions given here. But this question does narrow it down to just the direction of the door swing, so that you're just looking at that one, just making sure that one component of all the different landing dimension requirements is in place. But I can understand where you're going with the others, simply because, like you said, you're reading the section, and there's there are many, or at least a few different requirements for the dimensions, depending on, what you're looking at. But I don't know if that helps you or not. I'm just trying to, there's a lot to look at with the code and one or two essentially landings, but the question does help narrow it down to the door swing portion.
Also, if I may add, in the question, pay attention also on the word plan. Didn't say according to the section. So that it was also a hint not to get distracted to look the section, but to look the enlarged plan. Make sense?
This is Joe Labrie. Can I comment on this one too?
Of course.
Please do.
I hate this question. I saw it. I looked at it. And man, you are so right on to question this one, in my opinion. And you know, real life, real world, it's never going to happen like this. You're not going to read some awkwardly structured question to where you're saying, is that the door swing? You're going to go look at the dimension. You're going to verify the 5'9". You're also going to verify the 44 inches required. You're going to make sure both of them are there, and you're going to apply good judgment, right? So the question is problematic, and ISU has gone to great lengths, as I've said in previous webinars, to scrub this kind of goofy, misleading stuff. And I apologize for making it confusing, but it does help that we show you guys what was currently in there, because I assure you, what's coming on your exam is not going to be nearly as circuitous as this particular problem is. So I just want to reassure you, we've gone to great measures to improve this greatly.
Great, thanks, Joe. We see more hands raised. Want to go ahead and call on Glenn. I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Glenn.
Yeah, I really appreciate Joe's comments there. I overthought both of these questions. I was looking for, based on the keyword, the clear, and I look at that and I think, oh well, the width of it would be the 8'4", and the length of it would be 5'9", and it's just semantics. And I did it on the other one too, looking for too much information where I just needed to kind of simplify what I'm reading and answer the question based on what they're asking, not trying to read too much into it.
Yeah, and that's an important note to take. So it's always, as we've mentioned in the past webinars, be sure to read the question. The question's asking for the clear width, second floor, stair landing, right, in the direction of the door swing. So it's being very specific to the second floor landing, and the door swing. That's the dimension we're looking for. So thank you for that comment, Glenn. I'm going to go ahead and call on George. I see you have your hand up again. I'm going to call on you, George.
Oh yeah, sorry. I just thank you. I believe it was Joe with his comment on that. That's what the confusion was for me as well. The 44 inch and then the total of the landing, which 8'4". So thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, George. Tim, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and call on you, Tim. If you'd like to mute yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, hi guys. I guess my question is, would you not take the 12 inches out of the handrail from the 5'9", making it a 4'9"? If you look at the rest of the details, the 44 clear is from face of handrail to face of handrail. That's a true clear dimension in my mind.
Great question.
So to me, your plan shows 12 inches, which is typical for ADA standards, that you have a 12-inch past your, or 12-inch before your first for the grab rail that sticks has to be 1.5 inch clear off the wall, right? And you have 1.5 inches round minimum. So, but the 12 inches is on plan. So 4'9" to me would be clear, not to mention the dimension string. I don't know if there's a note on the plan that says, is that from face of finish or is that from face of drywall? Because technically clear would be from door frame, edge of door frame out.
Hey, that's a great question. Hey, Nancy, what is your thought on that? I had never really quite thought about it that way, with the 12 inches of the handrail projecting into that space. What do you think?
So in this case, and thank you for calling out so if you imagine yourself walking through the door, and you can see the measurement starts like you mentioned at the edge of that frame. But the 12 inches, I mean, the handrail where it's projecting is, if you think about how far is that door projecting when it's fully open in relation to the handrail. And I don't know if hopefully I'll verbalize this in a way that makes sense, but that handrail, like you mentioned, is projecting 1.5 inches, right? When the door is fully open, there's probably going to be more than 1.5 inches between that door and the wall that it's now facing. So it still is clear, or there should at least be an inch and a half hardware on there as well. So if you're squeezed in between the door, when the door's fully open and you're in that little teeny space, you can't obviously, but I'm trying to give you a visual, that little space in between where the door is just about butted up against the wall. And then that 12-inch, or excuse me, the handrail is only projecting an inch and a half, right? So it's not projecting into the clear width of that door, because if you think about as well, if it is, that would be a problem if you were looking at a real life situation. But in this plan, it's okay. But if you're walking through the door has to be 4.0, and then the stair between handrails has to be 44. So you should have you'll have that clear dimension walking in that direction.
Yeah, but there's no, I guess from my point is, right, it would be 3-inch projection from face of wall. You get 1.5 inch gap, then 1.5 inch handrail. Mm-hmm. There's no code requirement. They could slam that door frame all the way up against it. Typical doors are 3/4 to 1.5 inch thick. Usually 1.5 inch thick if it's a rated door. Right, is not to mention the other side that turns in the direction of the 8'4" of landing. You're going to have a minimum of 3-inch projection in, which would make it a 5'6" clear at a minimum, which doesn't match any of the answers either.
So remember, you're measuring in the direction of travel. So when it's still 5'9", regardless. It's shown here. It's 5'9". They're walking through the door to that stair and going down that stair. It's still 5'9". There are projections that are allowed from the wall and certain amount to what the door can have. I mean, the door still has to provide the 4.0, but I don't know how to, if I could point, it'll be all right. But you're walking through that, it's 5'9" regardless. So the clear part, once you hit the handrail portion, that's going the other direction. But as you know what I mean, like you're going. Yeah, so Monica, if you started, like if you're walking through that door and continue down the stairs, from that point to the stairs 5'9", and then clear, if you're going from handrail to handrail, that dimension's perpendicular, right? So that's a different dimension that you'd be talking about for clear width. Does that make any sense?
Yes, yeah. I just
the step to the wall is not this one to this one, so there are no handrails here. It's from here to here.
Yeah, Monica points out the direction of the handrail is from the wall protruding out to the staircase, right? So it's not in the direction like what Nancy is saying.
Right.
It's the other direction. So that doesn't. It's not in the direction. It's not the 5'9" that you subtract out anyway, right?
Yes, it's on this one that you eventually subtract, but it's not where the question was. I'm trying to zoom as much as I can. So here eventually would be the elimination, but it's not where the question is. The question is for this direction.
Right, and if you're walking that way, and the door and the handrail is projecting further than the door. Am I saying that the right way? Well, it's sticking out more. It's projecting more than the door is in. That could be an issue, but that's not what the question's asking. So it's still 5'9", but if you were to walk through and that door for whatever reason wasn't open as far, or it couldn't open that far and the handrail projected more, that would be a different issue to look at, but the question isn't asking about that. It's still clear from the point entering the door to the first stair.
Perfect. Any other comments or questions about this, or we can move on to the next? I'm going to go ahead and look through the list of names, and I don't see any more hand or raised hands. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Monica that you can continue, please.
But there are only 2 homeworks. The only things we can remind is take a look on the handouts, because there are additional questions for practice for fire life safety plan reading. And also on March 30th, we will go through how the process for the exam will be. And we will talk about the electronic version that you will have on the computer during the exam. That day, we will upload more files as a handout, since we are not going to have any specific presentation to give to you. So we will fully use the 5 maximum capacity of uploading files for the practice. But right now, if you can, please download the files that you can see in the handout, since those files are very big as a size.
If I can add also, Caesar, one other comment. Thank you all for participating in this with us. We appreciate it. It's always good to exchange ideas, and all of you have really illuminated for us our own imperfections, and we'll be the first ones to admit we're not perfect. We just a group of people trying really, really hard. But I do want to say that we have Nancy Timmons, who's been part of this conversation. She is an expert in fire and life safety, and whenever I get stuck, or anybody in our unit gets stuck on anything having to do with fire and life safety, we know we can get an answer from her. Her time is precious. She's, people are calling her constantly, and I can't even imagine how many people are trying to make contact. So we, as a group, all of us on this call, are fortunate enough to have her attendance, her participations, and her insights to some of these things. So Nancy, I want to thank you for being part of this, and publicly thank you for giving these your thoughts and your expertise towards this, and just say to all of you, if any of these questions cause you some anxiety, don't let it, because we see, and your points and your questions are illuminating the problems with tests in general, really, but ours in particular, that we're working on, and what you will face in the real world test situation when you sit down to take the exam will not look nearly as confusing as perhaps some of these examples are. So don't get too worked up about it either way, okay?
Joe, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And it is, Joe, there's so much, we have a 2-year academy for a reason. There's a lot of information and that's just fire life safety. So you guys are looking at everything. I mean, there's a lot of information that you have in your mind, and then you add to that the stress of taking an exam. There's a lot to that. And like Joe said, this and Caesar might have mentioned too, it's not meant to trick anybody. And that being said, there's just so much that we're all looking at that it can be confusing, because, like that landing question, it's one question, but what are you looking at with two landings, right? The top and the bottom, and the stairs and the handrails there's a lot of information just with one piece of the stair alone. So when you're reading this question, you're probably, I don't want to say what you aren't doing. You may be, whatever, thinking about so many different things. And that's good, because that means you're aware of all those different things that you have to be aware of. But then just come back to it and just look at that question and try to, I tell them, the guys that, and I say guys because they're technically all guys right now in the academy, but I tell the guys in the academy, just have some kind of a stop button when you feel yourself getting into the weeds. Have something, whatever it is. If you need to think about Dodgers for a second, whatever your stop button is, have a stop button for a second where you just take a second, take a breath, look at the trees outside, whatever. Just look away for a second and then come back, read the question with a fresh mind, and that might help too. I know you're in a time limit. Well, I don't know. I think that's not allowed anymore. But anyhow, I don't know if that helps or not. But there's so much that you're looking at, and it's a stressful time. But again, it's not meant to trick anybody. And if you are finding yourself thinking about all kinds of things, I think that's great, because you're aware of all those those different components of the code. But again, thank you, Joe. And if anyone has any questions anytime, feel free to call or email. Or if you email and I don't email you back, then call, because it sometimes gets backed up.
Great, thank you for that. Thank you everyone who participated in this webinar. Before I provide the closing comments, I do see one more hand raised. Akmal, if you want to go ahead and add to what's been said already. Akmal, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, actually I confused. There's any extra practice questions more than which we downloaded the last webinars, or if we download the 5 each webinar, we are good now.
So every Thursday we uploaded extra questions for practice, and this time we just uploaded the fire lab safety. What we are going to do on March 30th, we will upload all the extra practice. But since the extra practice, they are not with a big size of file, we would like actually to use the handout to upload just for big files like the plans. And so if you need additional extra practice for the other discipline that you didn't download on the prior webinar, just email us and we will send to you. Any of you, if you want the additional extra practice, better for you to send the email, I will be more than happy to send to you.
But this extra plans, which you're talking about, which is already was in this webinars, nothing extra, nothing more than this webinars, right?
You are breaking up. Can you repeat, please?
The webinar we got the last 5. The last webinars, we got some extra, like you said, every Thursday extra.
Oh, I got it. This is the last one. So we did architectural, we did structural, we did mechanical and plumbing, we did electrical, and this was the last fire lab safety.
Yes, but
if you have downloaded every week, we do not have any extra practice questions to be provided. However, we could email to you if you did not download any one of them. So that's
I did. Yeah, just my question is there is extra than what we got with this webinars. But my understanding now, we just this is all of the extra practice, nothing more.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and just like Joe, I'm James Pan and I'm a structural engineer. But going back to that stair questions, to me, the key was the second forward ending, right? Many people got into that intermediate landing. That's not the second forward ending. So to me, I'm not a fire safety officer, but to me, there's only the width is confusing. Is either the direction you travel or the other direction, right? So the clear answer then is the which way the door is opening. So I think many people got focused or distracted to the intermediate ending or try to find the keyword clear, but that's not where you should look for, right? The question does say second forward ending. So that is what I had in my mind when I saw that question.
Great, thanks.
And then the other thing is the projection does the code allow projections does not need to be deducted from the clear distance. That's another key. So don't get into the weeds about if you should subtract the projection from the width. Let's say if the handrail is projecting in the other direction, right?
Great, thanks, James, for that. Tim, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Tim. Tim, are you there? Did you leave us? All right, no worries. I'm going to go ahead and look through the list of names one more time, and I believe that's it. So I want to go ahead and provide closing comments. We want to thank you for joining us to the end of this presentation. Thank you all that have been able to unmute yourself and participate in the discussion. It's great discussion, pointing out some things that that are confusing or may need to be brushed up a little bit. So thank you for that. If you have any additional questions or have comments for the presentations, please send us an email to that email address we've shared with you so many times. It's OSHPD or OSHPD.FDDISU@OSHPD.ca.gov. Again, Feel free to download those handouts that we provided for you for today's presentation and the others that were mentioned earlier. So if you haven't had a chance, go ahead to that handouts tab, download those for your use. You'll find that they're very useful as you head into your exam if you're going to be taking the exam. So want to remind you, March 30th, we're going to have the instruction of IOR exams, and that presentation is going to be on what to expect during the exam. That's anything from how many questions, the way the questions are formatted, et cetera, et cetera. We'll be answering some of the questions that you've been asking throughout the webinar. So feel free to join us, register if you haven't registered already, and you do that by going to the OSHPD website, www.oshpod.ca.gov, and on the upper right-hand corner, subscribing to the Inspection Services Unit updates. So feel free to do that if you haven't done so already. And we want to go ahead and conclude our presentation for today. So we want to thank you for your interest in becoming a certified Inspector of Record with the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. So until next time, be sure to stay healthy and stay safe.